Down goes DOMA, down goes DOMA, down goes DOMA, as Cenk would say. This is a day of good news when it comes to marriage equality, both DOMA being struck down by the Supreme Court and also basically Prop 8 being eliminated as well. Now, we are going to, throughout this show, celebrate a bit, but we're also going to critically analyze what the Supreme Court actually did, because it's not all roses and unicorns and fairies. There's actually some possibly bad silver linings. I don't know, maybe those would be black linings or something like that. But we're going to start off with what the Supreme Court actually decided in these two cases, and we're going to start first with DOMA. So the majority opinion was written by Anthony Kennedy, and he said, "The federal statute is invalid, for no legitimate purpose overcomes the purpose and effect to disparage and to injure those whom the state, by its marriage laws, sought to protect in personhood and dignity. By seeking to displace this protection and treating those persons as living in marriages less respected than others, the federal statute is in violation of the Fifth Amendment." He goes on to say, "DOMA's demonstrated purpose is to ensure that if any state decides to recognize same-sex marriages, those unions will be treated as second-class marriages for purposes of federal law." Continues, "This raises a most serious question under the Constitution's Fifth Amendment. DOMA humiliates tens of thousands of children, now being raised by same-sex couples, and makes it even more difficult for the children to understand the integrity and closeness of their own family and its concord with other families in their community and in their daily lives." And now, obviously, that all sounds good. That concords with what we on the program would believe. It sounds great, and we should bear in mind that when it came to striking down DOMA, it was a 5-4 decision, as the Prop 8 decision was. In this case, it was very much the liberals of the court versus the conservatives of the court. It was very cut and dried in that case, and it will not be when it comes to Prop 8. But that does not mean that this is a perfect ruling or this is exactly what we want. You might have noticed that it's missing something. It's missing a stated recognition that same-sex couples deserve the same rights to marriage that heterosexual couples have. That is not included here. And so basically what this does is it recognizes that there should be equality in some sense. It does include that, and perhaps that can be used in the future as some sort of precedent for future laws in this regard. But it does not lay out that right implicitly, or explicitly, I should say. And also, kind of the bad of this, and this is something that when we get to what happened on MSNBC today, we're going to get to, it also reinforces that marriage is very much a state issue, and that could actually be a bad thing going forward. And perhaps the most troubling thing about this is there's really nothing now that the federal government can do in the future, in 2 or 3 years. If, for instance, we have a Democratic Senate, Democratic House, Democratic President decides to pass a law saying that from here on out, federally, gays have the right to marriage. That now doesn't seem likely to be able to happen. Going by the precedent set in this ruling, it seems like that would actually be unconstitutional, because they're saying here, clearly, the liberals even in the court are saying that it's very much a state issue. And so that's going to complicate things going forward. I'm still hopeful, but it's not as perfect as some activists might have made it out to be when they first heard what happened. Now, moving on to the Prop 8 ruling, this one is, again, a little bit more complicated. Here you have the majority encompassing both some conservatives and some liberals, and we'll read a bit from John Roberts' opinion. He wrote, "Petitioners have no role, special or otherwise, in its enforcement. They therefore have no personal stake in defending its enforcement that is distinguishable from the general interest of every other California citizen. No matter how deeply committed petitioners may be to upholding Proposition 8, that is not a particularized interest sufficient to create a case or controversy under Article 3. And what he's talking about there is that the reason that Prop 8 will basically be eliminated in California is not because the Supreme Court is saying right here that it's unconstitutional in some sense. They're simply saying that the way it was argued, the way it was brought to the Supreme Court, could not continue. So basically, California refused to defend the law because they very quickly changed their mind. The state changed its mind after passing it. And so it came down to the chief lobbying group behind the push for Prop 8, that they were the ones defending it before the Supreme Court. And as Robert says there, they really have no standing whatsoever to argue that it should be upheld. And so the appeal from the lower court ruling, which took out Proposition 8, the appeal was taken out, and the elimination of Prop 8 at the lower court will continue, so that means that basically Prop 8 is now gone. And now the good of this is that in California, Prop 8's eliminated. We will have same-sex marriage in California, barring any other legislative action. Now, the bad of it, unfortunately, is that while they're making clear here that standing should be determined to some extent, at least, by an actual interest in what's going on, and not simply some sort of moral opposition to gay marriage. This, again, does not in any way imply that future state bans on gay marriage will be determined to be unconstitutional. This does not speak to that really at all. They really dodged a bullet here, I suppose, or dodged an opportunity, if you're a liberal, to make a really definitive ruling for the future of gay marriage, unfortunately. And so they focused almost entirely on standing here, and that's not what we would have wanted. And so coming out of this, we have a ton of reaction videos that we're going to get to. The first one, though, is Melissa Harris Perry. Now, she's receiving some criticism for what she said on MSNBC while talking about her interpretation of the ruling. And if you just look at the headlines, it seems that she's against it, but it's actually a little bit more nuanced than that. Let's watch.
So I want us to be careful. I feel so bad coming at this point because it's been sort of celebratory this whole time. It's an amazing day. There is so much to celebrate, but I also think we've got to be very careful and pause here. What the court did wasn't to affirm the fundamental equality of American citizens, to say that everyone has a deep and equal right to marry, that love will conquer all. That's not what the Supreme Court said, even though that may be how we read it and how it makes us feel. What they did all week long, from the beginning to the end of this week so far, is to gut the power of the federal government.
So I actually very much agree with her. When you listen to her argument and you read into what actually happened in these two rulings, she seems to be right. So neither the liberals or the conservatives, in some way, their reactions to what happened, in either case are they entirely accurate. Now, the conservatives we're going to get to are worried that now the entire country will fall apart. Of course, they were saying that in advance of the ruling. And some of the liberals who believed initially after the rulings that, oh, now gay marriage is free and legal all over the place, unfortunately, they are incorrect as well. It's a bit more nuanced than that. And I think that that's really unfortunate. Now, while these rulings do allow for continued state bans on gay marriage, that's not as bad of a consequence as it might sound like it is, because those bans were happening for the last 10 years anyway. And so while this does not strike those down, it doesn't really strengthen them in any sense. Really, the most unfortunate thing here is that now, if the federal government becomes more liberal and more progressive when it comes to gay marriage, they will be unable to make a definitive ruling that allows gay marriage across the country. And I think that that's unfortunate. So it is a day of celebration. It's a good day. It's an awesome gay day in America, but it's not quite as good as we might have hoped.